Hi, hello, and welcome back to what could be the start of a new video series where I'll be testing and creating vegan versions of recipes inspired by different countries. First off, thank you so much for all the suggestions. It was painful having to decide on just a few for today. I just ended up choosing 6 ideas randomly. Of course, these are not going to be authentic representations of the original dishes, especially because I did lots of improvising along the way. But yeah, I just wanted to test out cuisines and flavors I'd never really fully dipped my toes into before, and it was lots of fun. Let's start this off with Polish dumplings, pierogi. These little half-moon shaped dumplings are insanely delicious and can be eaten sweet or savory. America seems to be particularly fond of them. In Pittsburgh, there's this thing called the Great Pierogi Race, where humans dressed as pierogi race against each other. Somewhere in Alberta, Canada, stands a giant 8-meter pierogi monument. And we can't forget about the multiple pierogi mentions in Gossip Girl. Combine the flour and salt in a large mixing bowl. Then you're going to add a few tablespoons of chickpea water, some vegetable oil, and warm water. Mix it together with a spoon first until it's all clumpy, and then switch to your hands. Knead the dough for a good 7 to 10 minutes, then wrap it up in some parchment paper or cling foil and place it into the fridge for at least 1 hour. In the meantime, we're gonna make the filling. I opted for the popular pierogi ruski style, which is made with mashed potatoes, fried onions, and some sort of kvack, curd, or cottage cheese. First off, add some potatoes to a pot with cold water and bring it up to a boil. Let them cook until tender. In the meantime, we're gonna work on the quote-unquote cream cheese. Cream cheese? You could either use a store-bought product here or make your own out of cashews and a bit of vegan yogurt. You'll need some cashews that at this point have been soaking in a bowl of water since the night before, and then you're gonna boil them in water for about 20 minutes. Drain them, let them cool off for a few minutes, and then transfer the cashews to your food processor along with some salt and lemon juice. Almost forgot the unsweetened yogurt here. Blend it all up, scrape down the sides a couple times in between blending. Taste test and see if you've added enough salt. I would also suggest to add a teaspoon or 2 of agave syrup or maple syrup. Even if you're gonna use this for a savory filling, it just makes it taste a bit more like cream cheese. Peel the boiled potatoes once you can touch them again. It's a little tedious this step, but I find the potatoes taste much better this way than when they're cooking without the skin. Mash them up with a potato masher and add some of the vegan cream cheese we just made. Add plenty of salt and pepper, some store-bought fried onions. If you can't find these where you live, you can simply just cut up a regular onion, fry it in some oil, season it, and then add it to the mix. The consistency doesn't have to be super smooth here. A little chunky is preferred. For a sweet option, I had the idea to combine some peeled apple, lemon juice, cinnamon, sweetener, and some more of the cashew cream cheese. Okay, now that we've got our fillings, it's time to roll out the dough. It's gonna seem a bit hard the first minute or so, but as soon as it warms up a bit, it gets pretty easy to work with. Roll it out as thinly as you can. 2 to 3 millimeters would be best. I didn't do that. Definitely roll it out more thinly than what I did here. Grab a cookie cutter, or just a glass, and cut out your dumpling circles. Re-roll the scraps and cut out some more. You should be able to get like 17, 18 bites out of this. For me, it was only 16, since I'd kept the dough quite thick. Now fill and fold your dumplings. Add 1 heaping teaspoon of filling to the middle of a circle, fold it in half, and close off the edges. Now if you're feeling fancy, feel free to twist the edges like so. I used this video here as a guide. I will link it down below. You could also seal the dumplings with a fork, or simply just pinch the edges together with your fingers and leave it at that. Bring a large pot of salted water up to a boil. Carefully add your first batch of pierogi. Turn the heat to medium-low and let the dumplings cook for 3 to 4 minutes. Since mine were on the thicker side, they needed an additional minute or 2. Bring a non-stick skillet with some vegan butter to medium heat. Add the dumplings and let them fry and crisp up for about 2 minutes on each side. Towards the end, I also mixed in some minced garlic, and that was it. I served my pierogi with some more vegan butter, some chopped chives, and more fried onion. This was truly a yummy experience. Let's move on to a dish that has quickly become one of my new favorite meals, Okonomiyaki, which are these loaded, savory Japanese pancakes. The name roughly translates to something like whatever you like cooked, or as you like it grilled. So there's really infinite ways you could make these. For the batter, I made some slight changes to my fluffy vegan pancake recipe. Combine all the dry ingredients in a large mixing bowl. Flour, baking powder, and salt. In a separate smaller bowl, combine all the wet ingredients. Vegetable broth, or if you want to go the extra mile, add some of your homemade vegan dashi stock. For this, grab a small saucepan and add a small handful of dried shiitake mushrooms, some dried kombu. I couldn't find any dried kombu, and so I went for some toasted seaweed sheets instead. Just anything to get that fishy ocean type flavor. Also add some water and soy sauce. Bring this up to a boil, then let it simmer on medium-low for about 20 minutes. Drain the mushrooms and the seaweed, making sure to save the liquid. For the batter, we'll be needing 2/3 of a cup of the seaweed broth. Also add some apple cider vinegar to it, or rice vinegar, and this is gonna sound weird, but also some unsweetened applesauce. Give this a quick mix and then pour it into the bowl with the dry ingredients. Combine everything, then set that aside while you chop up your add-ins. I went for the soaked mushrooms that I chopped up into bite-sized pieces, a bit of pointy white cabbage, some spring onion, and also some grated carrot. Mix in the mushrooms and veggies. Bring a non-stick skillet with some oil to medium-high heat. Add 1/3 of the batter. Shape it into a more neat-looking circular shape, and then let it fry for 3 to 4 minutes on each side until golden brown. Then turn the heat to medium-low, put a lid on top. Best case scenario, that lid fits onto the pan, and let it steam through for another 2 to 3 minutes. This is optional, but feel free to also prepare some vegan tonkatsu sauce. For that, you're simply gonna mix together some ketchup, vegan Worcestershire sauce, I found this one at Penny, a little bit of extra sweetener, although since ketchup is quite sweet, it can easily be omitted, and a tiny bit more of that dashi stock. If there's anything left of the broth, you can keep that in your fridge for a few more days and add it to any kind of sauce or dressing you're making. Serve it up immediately with whatever you like, perhaps with some vegan sour cream, spring onion, sesame seeds, chili mayo, or of course with the sauce that we just made, some cucumbers, some everything bagel seasoning. Pickles taste really nice on this too. The recipe for these I'll be revealing in just a few minutes. Thank you so much to whoever recommended this to me. I'm a fan. This was really good. Elsa posted this recipe for vegan Swedish meatballs in the comments, and so here's me recreating it. First off, put together a flex egg by combining a tablespoon of semi-ground flax seeds and 3 tablespoons of water. Let this sit for about 10 minutes. Add all the remaining ingredients to the food processor. 1 to 2 cloves of garlic, some drained black beans, some almonds. Oh, that's right, I didn't have any streubrot, which I think would be breadcrumbs. I went with small cut oats instead. To give it some more flavor, add some mustard, some soy sauce. Blend it up until the texture is still a bit chunky and really easy to form. Taste test the mix before you shape it though. Season with salt and pepper if needed. I got exactly 13 out of this. Fry these guys in some vegan butter for about 5 minutes total, making sure to shake the pan every once in a while. Elsa gave us a number of ideas for what we could serve these with. Pickled cucumbers, for instance. Here's your chance to be fancy and to make them yourself. Grab a big glass jar, add some finely chopped cucumbers to it. Cut them with a sharp knife or a mandolin slicer if you have one of those. Then add some chopped spring onion to the jar, lots of fresh dill if you want, a couple of bay leaves, then a teaspoon of salt, some agave syrup or sugar, some white wine vinegar, a small amount of apple cider vinegar for that extra bit of tang, and some water. Give the jar a good shake, and then place it into the fridge. You know, the meatballs or bean balls are insanely delicious, by the way. Definitely a bit more on the crunchy, dry side. Some kind of sauce is definitely needed here, such as cranberry jam. I was surprised. I actually really like this combo. Like, if you think about it, ketchup is also a super sweet condiment, so it kind of works. Now, going back to Elsa's comment once more, there was a suggestion to pair these with sugar pasta. I didn't really know what that was about, so I googled Sweden sugar pasta and stumbled upon this Reddit post here, where there was this comment of someone saying that in Sweden it's a thing to eat ketchup with pasta. So I guess that's also something you can pair these with. Ketchup and pasta was one of my main go-tos as a kid, but that's probably not the same as sugar pasta. So idea number 4, I tried to make Paneer Paratha, which are these Indian flatbreads made with whole wheat flour and cottage cheese. Now the breads that I made were slightly too thick to pass as real paratha, but still quite yummy. Grab a large mixing bowl, add some all-purpose flour, whole wheat flour, and salt. Then add a bit of oil and water. Knead for a good 5 minutes or so until you've got a nice and soft ball of dough. Wrap it with some oil, wrap it up in some parchment paper, and place it into the fridge for at least half an hour. I didn't have any more time for filming that day, so I actually left it in there until the next morning. We're gonna replace the paneer, so the Indian cottage cheese, with some tasty blended tofu. It's green because I also added a bunch of spinach to it. First off, cut up a couple spring onions, peel and finely chop up some fresh ginger, and then saute both in a small skillet with a bit of oil over medium heat for about 3 minutes. Feel free to add some chili flakes before adding the fresh spinach, letting that wilt down for another 2 minutes or so. To a food processor, add a block of firm tofu, some salt, some garam masala. I also added some everything bagel seasoning to it. My friend Emily recently sent me this little care package from the US. Also a bit of white wine vinegar, and blend it up. Doesn't have to be super smooth here. Then add the sauteed spinach, onion, and garlic mix. Give it a couple more pulses with the food processor. Beautiful. Take the dough out of the fridge. Cut it into 6 somewhat equally sized pieces and shape each one into a little ball. On a lightly floured surface, roll them out super thin here. Add a heaping tablespoon of the tofu mix to the middle. Fold in the sides, clockwise sort of. You can twist off the excess batter here and add it to your next ball, but you also don't have to. Then you're supposed to roll this out until the dough is pretty much as thin as it was before. My problem was that the tofu mix didn't really merge with the batter here, so as soon as I put any kind of pressure on it, the filling would just go everywhere. So then I just stuck with carefully flattening the pieces with my hands as much as I could before frying them in my pan. I wonder how they turn out if you bake these. I have to try that at some point. I'm actually super happy with how they turned out. I topped them off with some mango chutney, some store-bought vegan sour cream. Also, highly recommend spreading some of the remaining tofu mix on there. I'm so in love with this next recipe. It's a vegan version of Tortilla de Patatas, which is a Spanish potato egg dish that, like any other omelet, is usually made in a pan, but my version is gonna be baked, which makes it super easy. It's just gonna take a bit longer. Grab a couple onions and cut them up, not into chunks, Mina, but into rings. Then add a bit of olive oil to a small saucepan, bring it to medium heat, add the onion rings, and let them saute for about 10 minutes. In the meantime, grab the potatoes. I went for these tiny baby ones. I could not be bothered peeling those. So yeah, I just washed them thoroughly and cut them into super fine circles. Add the circles to the onions. We don't want to cook the potatoes here, just have them be coated in olive oil. Season everything with plenty of salt and pepper and set this aside. Preheat your oven to 190 degrees Celsius and grease a round springform pan with some olive oil. For the quote-unquote egg portion of this recipe, you're gonna blend up the following things until smooth: a block of silken tofu, some corn flour or cornstarch, nutritional yeast, white wine vinegar, a bit of turmeric for the color, salt of course, and some melted vegan butter. Bring the tofu sauce and the veggies together. I added both components to my baking pan and then mixed everything up in there. That worked fine. It was a bit messy though. Now I'd recommend to add the potatoes to the blender first, mix everything up with a spatula inside the blender before transferring it all to the pan. Does that make sense? Allow this to cool for a good 15 minutes before serving. In the meantime, you can go ahead and chop up some spring onion for garnishing.
Vorsichtig, pass auf deine Hände auf, ne?
Ja.
Run a knife along the edges of the pan, carefully lift it up. Serve this with maybe a sprinkle of kalanamak, and that was that. Last but not least, we'll be doing some deep frying for this tasty Brazilian snack. Coxinhas, which apparently stands for little thighs. This recipe here I've adapted from Larissa, who sent me her entire collection of veganized Brazilian recipes. Yeah, huge shout out to her. I will make sure to put a link to Larissa's website in the description. Vegan versions of coxinhas are usually filled with jackfruit to replace the shredded meat. I was thinking of maybe bringing a completely different Brazilian or Portuguese dish into play here. There's this stew called, how do you say this? Feijoada with black beans and bacon amongst other things. And so my plan was to, make something kind of sort of similar here and use that as my filling for my coxinhas. The problem here was that black beans are so hard to find in Germany sometimes, so I opted for black lentils instead because I find they taste really similar to black beans. But, just some good old kidney beans would have worked fine. Bring a small to medium-sized saucepan with a bit of olive oil to medium heat. Add a chopped onion and a half a block of smoked tofu that has been cut into chunks beforehand. Let both saute for about 6 minutes. Then add some minced garlic, a couple of bay leaves, the dried black lentils, and some water. Bring this up to a boil, then allow this to cook over medium heat until the lentils are tender for about 30 minutes. You might have to add some more water here and there. Onto the making of the dough. To a large pot, add the soy milk, water, vegetable stock powder, some oil, and salt. Give everything a quick mix. Bring it up to a boil, then turn down the heat to medium-low. Now add the flour and mix it in thoroughly. This is gonna seem a bit tough in the beginning, but just keep going until you've got a smooth mixture going on. Keep stirring the batter, letting it cook for another 5 to 7 minutes, and then you can transfer it to your countertop, allowing it to cool and rest for a few minutes. Meanwhile, check on your lentils. Once they're soft, you can remove the bay leaves, add salt, soy sauce, pepper, some parsley, some cilantro if you want, and then take the lentils off the heat as well. Now fill, shape, and assemble the coxinhas. Cut them into 9 to 10 equally sized pieces. They should all weigh about 60 grams. Roll each one into a ball. Press into the ball with your thumb, creating a little indentation. Then pinch together the sides, dragging them upwards. Keep pinching until you're left with a cup of dough. Fill it with a tablespoon of filling. Close off the hole by pinching the batter together at the top. Yeah, it should be super easy to work with. Last but not least, form the little pointy tip and then move on to the next one. Dip each coxinha first into a bowl of non-dairy milk, then into a plate filled with breadcrumbs, making sure to coat all the sides. Grab a small pot, fill it with some frying oil, turn the heat to medium-high, check the temperature with a wooden spoon. You'll know it's hot enough once lots of bubbles are forming around it. Fry 3 to 5 at a time until they achieve a deep and golden brown color. My first batch took the longest with about 4 to 5 minutes. The next couple batches took only 2 to 3 minutes for me. I also made sure to carefully move them around every once in a while as they were frying. And yeah, let them rest on some paper towels after cooking, catching any excess oil. And then you can serve them up immediately. Perhaps with the remaining filling or some ketchup, some fresh salad maybe. These were truly delicious. I have to try more Brazilian food. And that, people, concludes this super long video. If you're still watching, let me know in the comments. For part 2, I was thinking about trying desserts from different countries. So if there's a dessert from a specific country or region that you think I should try, definitely leave that in a comment as well. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time. Bye!